Welcome everyone to this recorded webinar on MOUs and Contracts for Services 101. My name is Jackie Swihart, and I'm the Indiana Main Street Coordinator for the Indiana Office of Rural and Community Affairs. If you're unfamiliar with the Main Street program, here's a bit of information on the background. Indiana Main Street was formed in 1985 to assist communities in revitalizing their downtowns. The Indiana Main Street program is a coordinating program of Main Street America, which is a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Local Main Street programs utilize the Main Street 4-point approach, which focuses on elements of design, organization, promotion, and economic vitality. The Indiana Main Street program is currently managed by the Indiana Office of Community Rural Affairs, which works with local, state, and national partners to provide resources and technical assistance to aid communities in shaping and achieving their vision for community and economic development. For more information on either OCRA or the Indiana Main Street program, you can visit our website at in.gov/OCRA/ or you can follow us on social media accounts. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker and the creator of this toolkit, Molly Connor. Molly is a law student extern with the Lieutenant Governor's Office, and over the past couple of months, she's been working really hard to collect information on today's topic, conducting her own independent research, consulting with law professors and other experts in the field, as well as with Indiana Main Street directors. So welcome, Molly. With all that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. We sort of dive into MOUs and contracts for services, we're first going to do sort of a general overview of what these two items are. So MOUs are, that's short for Memorandum of Understanding, and this sort of document outlines the details of an agreement between two parties to work together toward a common goal. So MOUs solidify the intent of parties to work together, but it's important to note that legal documents like a contract, which we'll discuss later. These more just allow for an opportunity for parties to come together to work toward a common goal, but don't have ramifications in the same way a breach of contract would. And then a contract for services is a legally binding contract between two parties, wherein one uses for the other to complete a service or plan an event. But these contracts for service are usually note pretty strongly that that party that's providing that service or planning that event is not an employee of the contracting party. So for example, if a Main Street executes a contract for service with a municipality, those Main Street employees are not employees of the city and they do not become employees of the municipality by nature of that service. So before we dive in a little further, we just want to make sure to review the legal considerations that you should think about when reviewing this toolkit. So this toolkit is meant to be informational, best practices, and help, but it is not meant to constitute legal advice and is just general information, especially as it relates to contract for services. It's going to be extremely important to bring in outside legal counsel, whether that be from your Main Street board, if you have an attorney on the board, general counsel for the municipality, or private legal counsel to help with the development and the negotiation of these types of documents. So as an overview of this type of issue of MOUs and contracts for services, these two documents can be really powerful tools to provide Main Streets an avenue to diversify their funding sources, outside of just planning events, and it can really open for Main Streets to establish their presence in a downtown and establish a really strong relationship with the municipality. Documents like these can also help with longevity because we know that a local like mayoral administration or town council isn't going to have those same people around forever. So these types of documents can really solidify Main Street's presence across different types of people, across turnover in local administrations. So first we're going to review the differences between MOUs and contracts for services, because each of them has different pros and cons that may make them one more valuable than the other when you're thinking about what type of document you might look to develop with your city. So as we chatted about earlier, MOUs are informal agreements, and this may be preferable because they're more flexible and they can be expanded or contracted as necessary or as needed. MOUs are great for allowing a relationship to evolve, whereas a contract for services is a little more rigid because it is a binding legal document. MOUs tend to be a little shorter in length and complexity, but they do have the benefit of sort of laying out the expectations between different parties, in this case, between a main street and a municipality, for what each party expects of the other. And while one of the potential cons of an MOU is that it's not a legally enforceable document, but because of the time, planning, and the organization that goes into drafting a complete and comprehensive MOU, these MOUs do a great job of sort of forcing all the parties to come to the table to document, to negotiate through differences, and to come to an understanding, prioritizing what the most important aspects of the relationship are. So MOUs are incredibly helpful documents for sort of laying everything out on the table, for seeing what main streets have to offer to municipalities. On the other hand, contracts for services, because they're legally binding, contracts can provide more structure and more rigidity, which could be preferable, especially for a community that's sort of in the beginning stages of building a relationship with their municipality. Maybe the Main Street organization is new, or they haven't had a relationship before. Contracts like these can allow for very clear expectations and a very well-defined relationship, which can come with consequences if the party isn't fulfilling that they committed to in that contract. So a contract for services may be better if your Main Street organization plans to execute one single event or program at the time. And a contract for services also would be maybe preferable if your organization is just looking to build trust, if you want to give the municipality some sort of legal power in the early stages of your relationship, prove to the municipality that the Main Street is really serious and is sort of willing to take on the burden of the consequences if your Main Street's obligations are not met. So now we're going to talk a little bit about building an MOU, because this is sort of a broader process that can be a huge opportunity for Main Streets to sort of bring everything to the table. So when you're getting started building an MOU with your, even before you meet with a municipality, it's important to identify your value add. Sit down. What does Main Street currently do for the city? What is it sort of, or maybe bullet point a list of everything that Main Street could do for the city. Like write down a list of all the different services, events, programs that Main Street could potentially provide. And we've included some examples of that on the right in the webinar. Spur your thinking. And then maybe think about setting up a meeting with the city to review this list. Asking the city, what sort of burden can Main Street take off of the city? And really think of yourself and of Main Street as a strategic partner, and asking how can Main Street help? How can Main Street help the municipal goals? And this can really, I think, open up a lot of doors for Main Street to get involved. And when speaking more technically about the document, there are some important clauses that will be really vital to add to your MOU. And these are contractual type clauses. You want to be sure that you're including what the intent of the parties are. So this is an opportunity to reflect on what is this partnership city? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And all these other sort of 8 clauses are incredibly important, but the most important of these 8 is probably the assignments and responsibilities, number 4. So this is a direct description of what the expectations are. This allows you to lay out exactly what you're hoping to get from the city, and in this, for the city to sort of pinpoint exactly what they're looking for in the relationship with the main street. So really take take time to really develop out and be specific about exactly what you're looking to provide to the main street. Another really important clause is the risk sharing. So this is sort of your contingency or emergency planning. Make sure you lay out a plan for who bears the risk if something, if an event or a program goes wrong for circumstances within or without of either party's control. That'll be important and could potentially save a relationship if something were to happen that is unplanned. We've also included quite a few sample MOUs from different cities and towns in Indiana, across different main streets in the nation, and some other important documents that'll be helpful to use. It's important to note that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you see an MOU that another Indiana or Colorado or Georgia main street is using that you like, and that's working for them, don't hesitate to borrow some of that language and repurpose it to make it work for your main street. Just take special care to think about what it is that makes your main street unique and unique value adds you have. We selected these specific examples to include in the toolkit because these included a lot of really important and strong language to empower main streets, and these documents really are good examples of what it looks like to build a strong MOU and therefore build a strong relationship with a municipality or a downtown or a city. We've also included some documents that could potentially be presented to a city or town council, and some documents that may be better if your main street is planning one single event with assistance from your town or city. Transitioning to the importance of the relationship between the city and the main street. If you don't currently have a strong relationship with your municipality, your first step in all of this is going to be building trust and respect between the main street and between the town itself. And as many of us, type of relationship building can take some time. A good place to start would be setting up maybe low stakes meetings. Share with your municipal or local government what Main Street is working on. Share the type of relationship that Main Street envisions the town and Main Street having. And really offering up Main Street as a strategic partner is a good way to indicate to the town or city that Main Street is, at the end of the day, is really there to help, to be a partner, to be a source of information for the town. And then we've covered some best practices in building this relationship with your municipality. The first thing to think about, and that we've heard from other successful Main Street organizations, is just be present. Make yourself and what your organization does seen. This could be attending community gatherings, whether sponsored by Main Street or not, attend city council meetings, whether Main Street is presenting or not, and build those relationships and trust. Main Street should be one of the core partners of a city or town, and being visible leadership is really going to be a good way to indicate to the town council or town leadership that Main Street is one of these organizations that steps up and leads. A lot of main streets or municipalities may have agreements with their municipality, but that agreement may not be in writing. That may be a handshake agreement. And if your main street has a handshake agreement with your town and it feels right and it's working, it isn't always the best avenue to get that handshake agreement in writing if you think it would violate trust or change the nature of your relationship with your local government. However, if you're sort of in the beginnings of your relationship or there could be a change in leadership, it might be a good idea to talk about getting that handshake agreement in writing, because this will help both parties really flesh out the details of those sort of verbal agreements, and like we've already said, create some changes in local leadership, whether that's an election or turnover or retirement. You want to, as an organization that's going to be around and be an impactful partner long after any individual personnel changes. And the third thing to think about is consider your Main Street board's composition. So if you have a Main Street board, think about adding important local stakeholders to that board. They could be ex officio members or voting members of your board. This could include different members from economic development, from city or town planning, to even the mayor or the town manager. This will really help sort of garner some buy-in. So when Main Street is coming to city or town council and wants to develop a relationship or discuss an MOU or contract for services, having someone on the inside that can really advocate on behalf of Main Street inside city or town hall is going to be really impactful for your organization, because these board members will see the work that Main Street does every day and will be able to sort of be in your corner when you're looking to develop an argument or advocate for something. And then once your MOU contract for services is established, once you've gone through all this work and you've developed these documents that have written out your expectations or understandings, once that's all set, make sure that you're reporting out to your stakeholders. So hold your Main Street organization accountable to the city and to those that sort of backed you or are now stakeholders in what it is that you do. One great and easy way to do this is offering to present either quarterly or yearly to your city or town council. Give them an update on what you've been doing with funding. Give them an update on the impact that Main Street has. This will, it just gives you an opportunity to show off all that Main Street has done and the impact that it's had on the city. And in order to do this, track your accomplishments throughout the year. Keep track of attendance at events, growth in Main Street memberships, what your staff are up to every day, the relationships that they're building. So this will also help sort of garner confidence that Main Street is really doing everything that they said they would do in that MOU or contract for services. They're living out what they have promised or agreed to. And the third that we've already mentioned is developing longevity. So the current city leadership, the current personnel will not be there forever, but you want Main Street to be an organization that's at the forefront of leadership, especially as it relates to the downtown. And you want to be a partner that's constantly brought to the table. So as election seasons approach or as there's a turnover in leadership, make sure you're meeting with new candidates. Develop a working relationship with these stakeholders early and establish Main Street as an asset to the community. So there isn't a worry that Main Street, their importance and value to the city could be in jeopardy with a change of leadership. Getting out ahead of those types of changes will establish Main Street as one of those top organizations that's always going to be around working for the betterment of the downtown area. So with that, feel free to direct any questions to your Okra community liaison as you're working through this toolkit. We hope it's been helpful to you and will sort of inspire you to think about all the impact that Main Street can have on your community. We've also included quite a few resources for you, whether this be legal resources on creating an MOU or different examples of contracts for services. We hope that these sort of templates and examples will give you some inspiration when you're thinking about sort of beginning this process of developing a relationship and then eventually an MOU with your city. So with that, thank you so much for tuning into this webinar, and we will see you next time.